The rain came down in sheets as Olivia Nichols darted under the striped awning of Petunia's bookshop, clutching her city map with damp fingers. She'd been working at the tourism office for 3 years now, but nothing prepared her for the sudden downpour that had scattered tourists like confetti across downtown Portland. "Looks like you could use this," a deep voice said, and Olivia turned to see a tall man in a dripping raincoat offering her a paper napkin. "Thanks," she said, accepting it gratefully. "I should know better than to trust the forecast in April." She dabbed at her face, conscious of the mascara likely smudged beneath her eyes. The stranger smiled, revealing a dimple in his left cheek. "I definitely didn't pack appropriately for this," he said, gesturing to his soaked loafers. "I was hoping to explore the city today, but I'm thinking that plan's a washout." Olivia noticed his camera, an expensive-looking model with a professional lens hanging from a leather strap around his neck. He'd protected it from the rain with his jacket, a gesture she found endearing. "Tourist?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. She'd gotten good at spotting them. "That obvious, huh?" He extended his hand. "Will Zimmerman." "Olivia Nichols," she replied, shaking his hand. "And don't worry, I work at the visitor center. Spotting tourists is literally my job." Will's eyes brightened. "Then I've stumbled upon the perfect person. I'm only in town for 3 days, and I'd love some authentic recommendations, not the usual tourist traps." Olivia considered the bedraggled man before her. There was something refreshingly earnest about him, unlike the businessmen who often blew through Portland with barely a glance at its charm. His warm brown eyes crinkled at the corners when he smiled, and his dark hair was curling from the rain. "Where are you staying?" she asked, mentally cataloging her favorite local spots. "The Sentinel downtown." Olivia nodded, impressed. Not budget accommodations, but not overly flashy either. "Well, you're in luck. There's a place just 2 blocks from there that most tourists never find, Rosemary's Kitchen. Family-owned for 3 generations, best clam chowder in the city. The kind of place where locals actually eat." Will pulled out his phone, quickly typing in the name. "That sounds perfect. Any chance you join me for lunch tomorrow as a thank you for the recommendation?" His invitation was casual, but his eyes held hers with unexpected intensity. Olivia hesitated. She didn't typically socialize with tourists. It was a professional boundary she maintained, but there was something about Will Zimmerman that intrigued her. Perhaps it was the way he seemed genuinely interested in the city, not just checking off attractions from a guidebook. "I have a lunch break from 12 to 1, she found herself saying. Will's face lit up. "Perfect. Rosemary's Kitchen at noon." He glanced outside where the rain had slowed to a drizzle. "I should get going. I've got a conference call in 30 minutes. "What kind of work do you do?" Olivia asked, curiosity piqued. "Photography mainly," he said, adjusting his camera. "I'm exploring some business opportunities out here." With another smile, he stepped back into the light rain, waving before disappearing around the corner. Olivia watched him go, surprised at the flutter of anticipation in her stomach. It was just lunch with a tourist, she reminded herself. Nothing to get excited about. By next week, Will Zimmerman would be back wherever he came from, and she'd have another stack of maps to distribute. The next day, Olivia arrived at Rosemary's Kitchen 5 minutes early. The restaurant was housed in a converted Victorian home, with mismatched chairs and tables scattered across creaky wooden floors. The walls were lined with black and white photographs of Portland's waterfront through the decades. Will was already there, studying the photos with obvious interest. He wore dark jeans and a simple blue button-down that made his eyes appear even warmer. When he spotted her, his face broke into a genuine smile that made Olivia glad she'd spent extra time on her appearance that morning. "Right on time," he said. "I've already fallen in love with this place." "Wait until you taste the food," Olivia replied, leading him to a small table by the window. "Rosemary's granddaughter runs it now, but they still use all the original recipes." They settled in, and a server quickly brought water and menus. Will studied the offerings with the concentration of someone who took food seriously. "So, photography," Olivia prompted. "What kind?" Will took a sip of water. "A bit of everything." I started with landscape work, national parks, remote locations, but lately I've been doing more urban photography. Capturing cities and their hidden corners. Is that what brings you to Portland? A hint of something hesitation flashed across his face before he nodded. Partly, I'm also meeting with some investors about a gallery showing. That's impressive, Olivia said, genuinely intrigued. Any of your work I might have seen, Will shrugged modestly. Maybe my Pacific Northwest series was featured in National Geographic last year. Olivia's eyes widened. Wait, the forgotten coastline spread, that was you. She remembered being mesmerized by those photographs, the way they captured both the grandeur and intimacy of the coast, making familiar landscapes seem magical and new. He nodded, looking pleased but slightly embarrassed by her recognition. It was a 6-month project. Lived out of my car most of that time. Before she could respond, the server returned for their orders. Will asked for the clam chowder on Olivia's recommendation while she ordered her usual salmon sandwich. So you're not just a visitor center employee, Will observed once the server left. You're a Portland expert, Olivia laughed. Hardly. I moved here 3 years ago for a marketing position that fell through. The tourism job was supposed to be temporary, but I fell in love with helping people discover the city. She traced the condensation on her water glass. There's something rewarding about sending someone to the perfect spot, a restaurant, a viewpoint, a hidden park, and knowing they'll have an experience they'll remember forever. That's beautiful, Will said, leaning forward. It's exactly what I try to do with photography. Capture moments that make people feel something. Their food arrived, steaming and aromatic. Will took his first spoonful of chowder and closed his eyes in appreciation. You weren't kidding about this place. This might be the best chowder I've ever had. Olivia smiled, watching him savor another spoonful. Portland has so many places like this, family-owned gems that get overshadowed by trendier spots. As they ate, conversation flowed easily between them. Will told her about growing up in Chicago, his early passion for photography, and his travels around the world. Olivia shared stories about her childhood in Seattle, her art history degree, and her dream of eventually opening a cultural heritage tour company. Why haven't you? Will asked, finishing the last of his chowder. Why haven't I what? Started your tour company. Olivia shrugged, suddenly self-conscious. Money mostly. Starting a business requires capital I don't have, and I'd need connections, marketing. She trailed off. It's just a dream for now. Will studied her with those attentive eyes. Sometimes dreams just need the right opportunity. Their lunch hour flew by, and Olivia reluctantly checked her watch. I should get back to work. Let me walk you, Will offered, quickly paying the bill despite her protests. Outside, the spring day had blossomed into sunshine, the streets still glistening from the previous day's rain. As they walked, Will asked thoughtful questions about Portland's architecture and history, genuinely interested in her answers. At the visitor center entrance, Olivia found herself reluctant to say goodbye. How long did you say you're in town for? 3 days, Will replied, but I'm thinking of extending my stay. Hope fluttered in Olivia's chest. Well, if you need any more recommendations. Actually, Will said, I was hoping you might show me some of those hidden spots yourself. Dinner tonight? Olivia hesitated only briefly. I'd like that. Will's smile was warm. I'll pick you up at 7. You choose the place. That evening, Olivia guided Will to a small farm-to-table restaurant tucked away in a residential neighborhood. The space was intimate, with only 12 tables and an open kitchen where they could watch the chef work. This is perfect, Will said, surveying the cozy interior. How did you find this place? My apartment's just around the corner, Olivia explained. I walked past during their opening week. The owner, Elena, is an incredible chef who worked in Paris for years before coming back to open this place. Throughout dinner, Olivia found herself increasingly drawn to Will. He wasn't just handsome, though he certainly was that. There was a depth to him, a genuine curiosity about the world that resonated with her. When he spoke about photography, his passion was palpable. What made you choose photography as a career? She asked as they shared a chocolate dessert. Will considered the question. I was a restless kid, never felt like I belonged anywhere until I picked up a camera. Suddenly, I had a way to process the world that made sense. He paused. My father wanted me to join the family business, but I needed to find my own path. What business was that? A shadow crossed his face. Investment banking, not exactly creative. And he was disappointed when you chose photography instead, Will smiled ruefully. That's putting it mildly. He cut me off financially, said I needed to learn the value of hard work. He shrugged. Best thing that ever happened to me, made me hungry, determined to succeed on my own terms. Olivia was touched by his candor. And you have succeeded. National Geographic isn't exactly amateur hour. It's been a journey, Will admitted. What about you? What made you stay in Portland when your marketing job fell through? Olivia considered the question. I was supposed to go back to Seattle, tail between my legs, but something about Portland felt like home from the first day. The way the city balances history and innovation, the accessibility of nature, the food scene, I couldn't leave. Their conversation continued late into the evening, neither wanting the night to end. When Will finally walked her home, the air between them was charged with possibilities. At her door, he hesitated. I'd love to see you again tomorrow. Olivia nodded, heart racing. I'd like that too. Will leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted. Instead, Olivia closed the distance between them, their lips meeting in a kiss that started gentle but quickly deepened. His hands found her waist, drawing her closer, and Olivia felt a surge of connection that startled her with its intensity. When they finally broke apart, both slightly breathless, Will tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Tomorrow, he promised, his voice husky. Olivia watched him walk away, touching her lips where his had been. She was falling for a tourist, exactly what she'd always cautioned herself against. Yet something told her Will Zimmerman wasn't just passing through. The next day was Saturday, and Olivia had the whole day free. Will picked her up in a rented car, and they drove to the Columbia River Gorge. The spring weather was perfect for hiking, with wildflowers beginning to carpet the trails and waterfalls at their most powerful from the spring runoff. As they hiked, Will occasionally stop to photograph interesting vistas or details a wildflower pushing through a crack in a rock, sunlight refracting through waterfall mist. Olivia found herself the subject of several candid shots, laughing when he showed her the results on his camera's display. You make Portland look even more beautiful, he said, showing her an image he'd captured of her gazing out over the Columbia River, wind playing with her hair. Flatterer, she replied, but secretly treasured the compliment. After their hike, they picnicked on a bluff overlooking the gorge. Will had packed an impressive spread: artisanal cheese, fresh bread, local berries. As they ate, he asked more about her dream of starting a cultural heritage tour company. What would make your tours different? He asked, pouring her a glass of Oregon Pinot Noir. Olivia warmed to the subject. Most tours focus on the obvious attractions, but I'd want to showcase the layers of history and culture that make Portland unique. Indigenous heritage sites, immigrant communities that shape the city, architectural stories, connecting visitors to the authentic soul of the place. Will listened intently, asking thoughtful questions that helped Olivia articulate ideas she'd only vaguely formed. By the time they packed up their picnic, she had a clearer vision than ever before. You know, Will said as they drove back to the city, you should really write a business plan. Your passion is contagious and your concept fills a market gap. Investors would be interested. Olivia laughed. Maybe someday. Right now, I'm still saving up for a decent car. Will gave her a curious look but didn't press the issue. That evening, they attended a jazz performance at a small club in the Pearl District. Sitting close in the dim light, Olivia felt as if they existed in a bubble apart from the rest of the world. Will's arm draped casually across the back of her chair, his fingers occasionally brushing her shoulder in a touch that sent shivers down her spine. I don't normally do this, she confessed during a break between sets, her voice low. Do what? Will asked, his face close to hers. Fall for someone so quickly, especially not a tourist. She looked down at her drink. You're leaving tomorrow. Will was quiet for a moment. What if I told you I might be staying longer? Hope flared in Olivia's chest. Really, what about your work? I can work from anywhere, he said. And I'm finding Portland very inspiring. The way he looked at her made it clear that the city wasn't the only source of inspiration. Later that night, Will came up to her apartment. Their kisses grew more urgent, hands exploring with increasing boldness. When Will finally pulled back, his breathing ragged, Olivia saw the question in his eyes. "Stay," she whispered, taking his hand and leading him to her bedroom. Their lovemaking was both tender and passionate, a physical expression of the connection that had been building since that rainy afternoon. Afterward, lying in Will's arms, Olivia tried to ignore the voice in her head reminding her that this might be temporary. She'd fallen hard for this thoughtful, talented man who saw the world through such a unique lens. "What are you thinking?" Will asked, his fingers tracing patterns on her bare shoulder. "That I don't want you to leave," Olivia admitted, vulnerability making her voice soft. Will propped himself up on one elbow, looking down at her with serious eyes. "I don't want to leave either. In fact, I have something to tell you." Olivia tensed slightly. "Okay. I haven't been completely honest about why I'm in Portland," Will began. "The photography part is true, but it's not the whole story." Olivia sat up, pulling the sheet around herself. "What do you mean?" Will took a deep breath. "My father passed away last year. Despite our differences, he left me his company Zimmerman Capital Partners." Olivia blinked, the name registering slowly. Zimmerman Capital, wait, the investment firm, the one that manages billions in assets, Will nodded, looking uncomfortable. "I've spent the past year restructuring the company, moving its focus towards sustainable investments. Portland has a thriving green technology sector, which is why I'm here looking at potential investments." "So you're not just a photographer," Olivia said slowly. "Photography is my passion, but yes, I'm also CEO of Zimmerman Capital now." Will watched her carefully. "I didn't mention it because people treat me differently when they know. I wanted you to see me, not my bank account." Olivia fell silent, processing this revelation. Will Zimmerman wasn't just a tourist with a nice camera, he was a millionaire, possibly a billionaire, running one of the largest private investment firms in the country. "Are you angry?" Will asked, looking genuinely worried. Olivia shook her head slowly. "Not angry, just processing." "It's a lot to take in," she gave him a wry smile. "I recommended Rosemary's Kitchen to you because it's affordable and authentic. If I'd known you were used to five-star restaurants, that's exactly why I didn't say anything," Will interrupted. "Rosemary's was perfect." "Your recommendation was perfect." He took her hands in his. "You saw me as just a guy with a camera, and that meant everything to me." Olivia studied his face, seeing the sincerity there. "So what happens now? You go back to Chicago and run your empire?" Will's expression softened. "Actually, I've been thinking about establishing a West Coast headquarters for the company. Portland would be ideal, progressive values, strong environmental ethic, growing tech sector." "And that decision has nothing to do with meeting me?" Olivia asked skeptically. "It was already on the table," Will admitted, "but meeting you has certainly made the prospect more appealing." He stroked her cheek gently. "I know this is fast and I'm not asking you to append your life, but I'd like to see where this could go between us." Olivia leaned into his touch, her mind racing. "I need some time to process all this." "Of course," Will said, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "Take all the time you need." Next morning, Olivia woke to find Will already up, making coffee in her small kitchen. Domestic looked good on him, she thought, watching him navigate her space with careful consideration. "Morning," he said, offering her a steaming mug. "I hope I didn't overstep." "Coffee is never overstepping," she replied, accepting it gratefully. She'd slept fitfully, her mind churning with revelations and possibilities. They sat at her tiny breakfast table, sunlight streaming through the windows. Olivia had made her decision during the sleepless hours of the night. "I want to keep seeing you," she said finally. "But I need you to understand something. I've worked hard for everything I have. It's not much compared to what you're used to, but it's mine. I won't be kept, and I won't be a trophy girlfriend." Will reached across the table for her hand. "I would never want that. Your independence, your passion for what you do, that's what draws me to you. I don't want to change anything about you or your life." "Good," Olivia said firmly, "because I'm still the same person who recommended a humble chowder place to a tourist." And I'm still the same photographer who got caught in the rain, Will replied, squeezing her hand. The bank accounts and corporate responsibilities, that's just circumstance, not who I am. Over the following weeks, Will extended his stay in Portland, taking a suite at the Sentinel while he began looking at office spaces and meeting with local tech entrepreneurs. He and Olivia fell into a rhythm, seeing each other nearly every evening and spending weekends exploring the city and surrounding areas. True to his word, Will never flaunted his wealth or tried to change Olivia's lifestyle. He seemed genuinely content eating at neighborhood restaurants and watching movies on her second-hand couch. The only hints of his financial status came in subtle ways: the quality of his camera equipment, the cashmere sweater he wore on chilly evenings, the ease with which he picked up dinner checks. One evening, about a month into their relationship, Will invited Olivia to dinner at his hotel's upscale restaurant. When she arrived, she found him looking uncharacteristically nervous, fiddling with his water glass. "Everything okay?" she asked, settling into her seat. "Yes," he said quickly. "Just have something I want to discuss with you." Throughout dinner, Will seemed distracted, his usual attentiveness replaced with an almost fidgety energy. Finally, as they finished their main courses, he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a folder. "What's that?" Olivia asked. "A business proposal," Will said, sliding it across the table. "For you." Puzzled, Olivia opened the folder. Inside was a detailed business plan for Portland Heritage Journeys, the very tour company she'd dreamed of starting. The plan included market analysis, financial projections, marketing strategies, and potential partnerships with local businesses. "Will," she breathed, flipping through the meticulously prepared document. "Did you do all this?" He nodded, watching her carefully. "I had my team help with the market research and financial modeling, but the concept is all yours. Every idea you've mentioned over the past month, I've been taking notes." Olivia didn't know whether to be touched or offended. "I can't accept this," she said finally. "It's too much." "It's not a gift," Will clarified quickly. "It's an investment opportunity. Zimmerman Capital would provide seed funding as a minority investor. You'd maintain controlling interest and full creative direction." He leaned forward. "Olivia, your concept is solid. I'd be making this offer to anyone with your vision and dedication. But you're not dating anyone else with my vision and dedication," she pointed out. Will conceded the point with a nod. "True, but I've kept this completely separate from our personal relationship. My investment team evaluated the concept independently and agreed it has strong potential." Olivia closed the folder, conflicted. "I need to think about this." "Of course," Will said, reaching for her hand. "Take all the time you need. This isn't about us, it's about your dream." That night, back at her apartment, Olivia pored over the business plan. It was exactly what she'd envisioned, with practical additions she hadn't considered. The financial backing would allow her to quit her tourism office job and focus on building the company full-time. Yet she hesitated, wrestling with her pride and independence. Would accepting Will's investment compromise their relationship? Would it create an imbalance of power? After several days of consideration and conversations with her closest friends, Olivia made her decision. She invited Will to Rosemary's Kitchen, back where it all began. "I'll accept your investment," she told him over bowls of clam chowder, "but with conditions. First, this stays professional. Your company invests based on merit, not because we're dating. Second, I want everything documented properly with contracts and clear expectations. And third," she paused, "if our relationship doesn't work out, the business arrangement remains separate." Will's face broke into a relieved smile. "I wouldn't have it any other way. In fact, I've already drawn up contracts that stipulate exactly those terms." He reached across the table, taking her hand. "I believe in you, Olivia. Your passion for Portland's heritage deserves a platform." Over the next 6 months, Olivia's dream became reality. With Will's investment, she launched Portland Heritage Journeys, offering specialized cultural and historical tours that quickly gained popularity among discerning travelers seeking authentic experiences. She hired 2 part-time guides and developed relationships with local businesses, indigenous cultural centers, and historical societies. Meanwhile, Zimmerman Capital established its West Coast headquarters in downtown Portland, occupying 3 floors of a sustainably designed building. Will divided his time between Chicago and Portland, but spent increasingly more time in Oregon. Their relationship deepened, navigating occasional challenges with honesty and communication. Olivia maintained her modest apartment, insisting on paying her own way in their personal life, while Will respected her independence. They found balance. He introduced her to fine dining and weekend trips to wine country, while she showed him the joy of farmers' markets and community festivals. 1 year after their rainy first meeting, Will took Olivia back to the Columbia River Gorge for a special anniversary hike. At the same bluff where they'd picnicked, with the stunning vista spread before them, he dropped to one knee. "Olivia Nichols," he said, holding up a simple but elegant ring, "you recommended a restaurant to a tourist, not knowing he'd want to dine with you forever. This past year has been the most authentic, grounding experience of my life. You've helped me remember who I am beyond boardrooms and balance sheets." He took a deep breath. "Will you marry me?" Tears welled in Olivia's eyes. "Yes," she whispered, then laughed through her tears. "As long as we can still eat at Rosemary's Kitchen sometimes." "At least once a month," Will promised, slipping the ring onto her finger, "to remember where we started." Their wedding, 6 months later, balanced Will's resources with Olivia's sensibilities, an intimate ceremony at a historic Portland mansion with just 60 guests, followed by a reception catered by local restaurants they discovered together, including Rosemary's Kitchen. For their honeymoon, they embarked on a photography tour of New Zealand, with Will documenting landscapes while Olivia researched heritage tourism practices. When they returned, they purchased a craftsman-style home in one of Portland's historic neighborhoods, a property Will had restored using sustainable materials and methods. 2 years after their wedding, Portland Heritage Journeys had expanded to 15 employees, with Olivia developing training programs for other cities interested in authentic cultural tourism. Will's West Coast office had grown to 50 employees, focusing on sustainable technology investments. And one snowy December evening, they returned to Rosemary's Kitchen for their monthly tradition, this time with a special announcement to share with the staff who had come to know them well. "We're having a baby," Olivia told Alina, Rosemary's granddaughter, who squealed with delight and brought them celebratory desserts on the house. Later, as they walked home through gently falling snow, Will wrapped his arm around Olivia's shoulders. "To think," he mused, "if it hadn't rained that day, if you hadn't taken shelter under that awning. If I hadn't recommended that restaurant to a tourist," Olivia added, patting her still flat stomach. "Best recommendation of your life," Will said, stopping to kiss her under a streetlight wreathed with holiday decorations. "Of our lives," Olivia corrected, standing on tiptoe to kiss him back, snow collecting on their eyelashes as they embraced. Two people who had found each other by chance but chose to build a life together with purpose, passion, and love.